A pale, white-haired man in bed apologizes for the late-night call. Saintess Sarah Martin smiles kindly, telling him not to worry. Duke Theodore Helden smiles gratefully, thanking Sarah. Crash! The potion bottle shatters as Sarah screams for the Duke. As he collapses with blood on his lips, she cries his name in horror.
She frantically explains she made the potion with her sacred power. Her mind spirals in shock, questioning if she somehow killed him.
In denial, she tells herself it cannot be true.
A pool of blood spreads across Duke Helden's pillow.
A ring with a golden gem shatters dramatically.
A shocking thought surfaces, though I wanted him dead.
The scene introduces Ulvis Landrich, the young emperor. Emperor Ulvis appears, asking Sarah about Theodore's condition.
He looks concerned, softly repeating the Duke's name.
Seeing the body, Ulvis screams Theodore's name in disbelief.
He turns to Sarah with a cold smile, questioning her role as a Saintess.
Grabbing her shoulders, he furiously demands how she dared to fail. He declares she has made a grave mistake that she must atone for.
Sarah tearfully agrees as a narration reveals Duke Helden was a threat to Emperor Ulvis, who reassures her not to worry. Ulvis embraces the distraught Sarah, a cruel smirk on his face.
Sobbing in his arms, she cries out to His Majesty. Her thoughts confirm her terrible belief. She killed Duke Helden.
But she recalls His Majesty Ulvis seemed pleased to see her. She finds solace in his pleasure, reaffirming her deep love for him.
The story begins of the Landric Empire's past suffering under a demon invasion. The goddess Chrono is shown, looking down on the world with concern. The goddess bestowed great power upon a single girl to protect her people.
The girl became the first Saintess, starting a lineage from noble families that kept the peace.
Sarah explains she is the newly chosen Saintess from the Martins County. She came to the imperial family's notice after healing the former emperor.
Her actions led to her engagement with Crown Prince Ulvis.
A few years later, the emperor passed away. Following his father's death, Crown Prince Ulvis ascended the throne.
She, his fiancé, was set to become empress at their wedding.
Her eyes gleam with quiet determination.
A noblewoman scoffs, calling her a shameless woman with no right to the throne.
Sarah reflects on her past as the daughter of her father's mistress.
The nobles gossiped about her being a bastard and questioned her engagement, suspecting Duke Helden's influence.
Duke Helden is described as a noble with the blood of a former dynasty. He defied tradition and returned to politics through sheer ability.
A power struggle emerged between the crown princes and the duke's factions.
His Majesty struggled to win the court's full support. Standing with Ulvis, Sarah thinks the nobles fail to see he is the rightful heir.
Ulvis explains their marriage must be postponed until the nobility accepts them, urging they do their best together.
Agreeing, she resolves to do whatever she can to help him. She worked tirelessly to win the people's approval for their marriage.
Ulvis summons her, secretly asking her to look after the unwell Duke Helden.
Surprised, she agrees, though a flicker of hesitation crosses her face. She considers his request an act of mercy and feels ashamed for hesitating before being sent to the medical personnel.
She vows to do her best, but despite pouring her sacred power into the potion, the Duke's condition never improved.
Media confesses she killed him.
"I am a murderer," she realizes.
A red-haired man tells her to hide. Through tears, she thanks him.
He comforts her, her only hope.
With Duke Helden gone, she imagines finally marrying His Majesty. She prepares to become the Empress.
Clatter! Guards suddenly surround her in the hall. She sees the red-haired man, Oluis, with the guards.
Oluis coldly accuses her of poisoning the Duke.
He sentences her to immediate execution.
"Why?" she screams, confronting his betrayal.
Oluis accuses her of researching ways to kill the Duke.
She frantically denies it, claiming she was searching for a cure.
He scoffs,
calling her a clever witch. As he speaks, her hope begins to fade.
He declares another woman more suitable to be empress.
He condemns her to a life of prayer in prison.
He cruelly adds that the goddess will never forgive a witch.
"Wait," she begs as the guards drag her away.
"Don't move," a voice commands as blood splatters.
In pain, she remembers his promise to love her.
She falls, watching him walk away.
"It's not true," she screams in utter despair. A month after her engagement, nobles call her a prostitute's daughter. Hearing their cruel whispers, she feels utterly alone. The scene shifts to a vast, empty courtyard. She wonders if her birthright has doomed her happiness. Suddenly, Oluis appears and finds her alone.
She quickly hides her tears, claiming it's nothing.
He sits beside her, admitting he overheard the nobles. He gently comforts her, offering his handkerchief. Touched by his kindness, she looks up at him gratefully. She thanks him and promises to return his handkerchief. He responds with a warm, reassuring smile. He hopes she'll return it, embroidered with the royal crest.
His forwardness leaves her flustered and speechless.
She timidly asks if he truly means it. "Of course," he replies with a loving smile. Clutching the handkerchief, she is filled with blooming hope. She marvels that His Highness accepted her as his fiancé. The memory fades as she is led to the guillotine. Bound and exhausted, she can no longer speak. She desperately questions why Oluis abandoned her. In prison, her desperate pleas to see him were ignored. His promise to protect her echoes in her mind.
The memory of his face begins to dissolve.
Her only wish was to be loved by him. An old man touches her wounded head before the end. The crowd roars, demanding death for the witch.
Blood splatters as the blonde woman stares blankly, her forehead wounded.
Tears mix with blood as she hangs her head in defeat. A white-haired man holds her, declaring there's nothing else to be done. A pink-haired woman, Sarah's stepsister, Isiane Martins, begs to speak with her. A guard warns Isiaeo away, calling Sarah a suspicious witch. Isiane vehemently defends Sarah, insisting on her innocence. Believing her sister needs her, Isiane resolves to stay by her side. She pleads to be allowed one last conversation with Sarah. Overjoyed, Isiane offers a grateful thank you.
Isiane kneels before her as Sarah weakly whispers her name.
Isiane smiles, promising to be on Sarah's side until the very end. Crying, Sarah believes Yane is the only one who hasn't abandoned her.
In a memory, Sarah recalls how Isiane was always kind, her only true family.
Sarah tells her stepsister she is better suited to be a saintess. Her hope shatters as she looks down in sudden, dawning horror. Isiane leans in close, cruelly calling the foolish Sarah by name. Her face twisting, ICN finds the situation amusing. She laughs, gloating that everything is unfolding exactly as she planned. Isiane reveals she's been eager to tell her the truth. Sarah's mind reels in confusion at her words.
With a monstrous grin, Isiane confesses she has always hated Sarah and found being her half-sister disgusting.
Sarah stares in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend the betrayal. Isiane smiles smugly, asking if Sarah knew the truth. She confesses to secretly poisoning Duke Helden with Jaka venom all along. As an explanation of the incurable dark magic appears, Sarah realizes she is innocent and questions Isiane's motive. Isiane admits she poisoned him slowly so it would go unnoticed. She reveals she framed Sarah with a fake antidote and got His Majesty Oluis to help, making Sarah laugh in despair. Isiane delights in how Sarah truly believed she killed Duke Helden. Broken and trembling, Sarah desperately asks why.
Isiane calmly explains that Sarah was simply in the way.
Duke Helden was just collateral damage, she callously adds. She taunts Sarah, noting Lewis never touched her in 6 years. Calling her pitiful, Isiane watches as the awful truth dawns on Sarah. Sarah weeps, realizing Luis was with Isiane the entire time.
Isiane looks down on her, declaring herself superior.
Trapped in a spider's web, Isiane listens as Isiane vows to manipulate everyone.
Isiane boasts that even His Majesty Louis is a puppet, eager to marry her.
That's not possible, Sarah snarls, facing her betrayer.
Isiane smugly asks if Sarah thought she couldn't marry because she wasn't a Saintess.
She gloats that there are no eligible noble daughters left.
As Isiane reveals she was chosen as the next Saintess, Sarah's last hope dies. Both the titles of Saintess and Empress were hers from the beginning. Isiane whispers that Louis did it all for her. Filled with rage and grief, Sarah screams, "Coward."
Kya? Sarah lunges at Isiane, who feigns a cry of shock.
The conversation is over. Isiane disowns her sister before the official.
A guard violently grabs Sarah's hair. She grieves the humiliation of being deceived and manipulated this entire time.
She remembers Duke Heldon, the man she was meant to protect.
With a flash of red, a new resolve is born, this time for sure. Disoriented, she recognizes her old room in the Martins' house and wonders why she is there.
What? The blonde woman gasps, staring at her reflection in the mirror.
Her mind races in confusion as she touches her own face.
She realizes with a shock that she has returned to her teenage self.
An advertisement interrupts the story.
Stunned, she wonders if it's truly possible to have gone back in time. She believes only the goddess could have performed such a miracle. She remembers the faces of those who betrayed her, the man she loved, and the sister she trusted. Clasping her hands, she prays with renewed purpose. She realizes her downfall began when she became a Saintess and vows to hide her sacred power this time. The haunting image of the guillotine flashes in her mind. This time, she resolves she will prevent the Duke's death. She believes saving him is the only way she can atone for his murder. The scene shifts to a tense breakfast where she stands apart from 2 other women at a long table.
A woman in purple is introduced as Melinda Martins, Countess Martins, and mother of Isiane.
She recalls how Melinda, a noble supremacist, always despised her as the daughter of a prostitute. With newfound resolve, she declares she won't endure it anymore. She points out that her father is not yet present, but Melinda coldly dismisses her. Melinda furiously erupts, screaming at her for daring to talk back and calling her a bastard child. Isiane calmly intervenes, telling her mother not to be mean to Sarah.
Sarah is momentarily stunned by Isiane's intervention.
A memory surfaces of a younger Isiane declaring Sarah is part of their family. She recalls Isiane's past kindness, telling her not to be bothered by their mother. But now, Sarah sees through the facade, knowing it was all an act she won't fall for again. She decides she must feign gratitude for now, keeping her knowledge a secret. Sarah puts on a convincing, radiant smile of thankfulness. She takes Isiane's hands as her stepsister reaffirms that she belongs in the Martins family. A glint in her eye reveals a flicker of her true, guarded thoughts. A blonde man with a goatee enters, announcing that everyone has arrived. He is identified as Count Martins. Sarah knows her father's only ambition is to produce a Saintess from the Martins family for fame. He brought her from the slums not out of love, but for her potential to become that Saintess.
Count Martins asks both girls if they are prepared for the debutante ball in 5 days.
The debutante ball is explained as a social debut for noble girls of marriageable age. Sarah realizes she is now 17, the age of her first debut. Her eyes widen as a terrible realization strikes her. She remembers that this is the year the previous Saintess, Farina, collapsed and died.
Recalling that the collapse happened right before her debut, she panics, realizing she's on track to become the Saintess again.
She worries, realizing she has far less time to change her fate than she had thought.
Melinda notes the ball is a momentous occasion, while Isiane happily confirms they are ready thanks to their parents' funding. Sarah internally notes that despite their claims, she herself has received barely any funds.
She recalls the terrible humiliation she suffered at her last debutante ball.
To get more money for a proper dress, she knows she must ask Melinda, who controls the estate's finances.
Crash! Melinda smashes her teacup in anger.
"You don't have enough money?" Melinda screams, accusing her of being greedy.
Her stepmother furiously tells her to be more creative and stop being so demanding. Sarah anticipated this exact reaction, but resolves not to give up this time.
Count Martins watches from the shadows, his expression cold and calculating.
Determined, Sarah goes to her father's study to speak with him directly. Count Martins looks up from his book, intrigued, and asks what she wants to discuss.
Sarah nervously asks her father for the funds needed for the debutante ball.
Count Martins coldly tells her to use her creativity, stating she should have already received money from Melinda. Sarah scoffs internally at the word creativity, knowing the funds are impossibly small.
Her father remains pointedly silent, ignoring her unspoken plea.
She argues back, asking if he expects her to shame the Martins family by attending the ball improperly dressed.
Such an action, she concludes, would even insult His Majesty the Emperor.
Slam! Her father stands abruptly, shocked at her claim and demanding to know how that could be possible. Sarah realizes he's taken the bait. Now she just needs to secure the money.
A flashback explains that the current emperor took a former prostitute as his mistress, facing severe backlash from the nobles.
Her father dismisses the topic as trivial, but Sarah calmly urges him to reconsider. She strategically argues that treating her, the daughter of a prostitute, differently from Isiane would seem like a criticism of the emperor himself. Enraged, he orders her to leave and flatly denies her request for more funds. Undeterred, Sarah warns that a poor impression on His Majesty will have consequences. She explains their family's standing would weaken further, falling behind their rivals. She reminds him their influence has already dwindled because their family hasn't produced a Saintess for generations. She astutely points out this must be a deep concern for him. By eliminating the disparity between them, she argues he would demonstrate magnanimity and earn the emperor's trust. Furthermore, funding both dresses equally would serve as a warning to their two rival families. She holds her breath, worrying that her bold gambit might not work. As she prays for success, her father stands silently with his arms crossed, deep in thought. After an advertisement, he finally looks down and concedes. Fine. He tells her to give her plan a try, leaving Sarah momentarily stunned. Overjoyed, she thanks him profusely and celebrates her victory internally. Filled with hope, she believes she might just be able to manage her fate now. From a darkened doorway, Isiane watches with cold, glowing red eyes. The next day arrives, and Sarah carries boxes in preparation for the ball. She smiles, thinking that now, all that's left is to handle her visitors. Announcing she'll be right there, she declares her preparations complete. Two maids gossip about her, noting she'll have to treasure the expensive accessories since their father won't give her more money.
Sarah's eyes narrow as she focuses on one particular maid.
She catches the maid smirking and questions what she saw. A nagging feeling of familiarity bothers her, though she can't place the maid's face. Opening her accessory box, she stares in horror at the shattered jewelry, realizing she can't attend the debutante ball. She dismisses Isiane as the culprit, believing she wouldn't be so direct, and frantically wonders who did this.
Her eyes fly open as a memory suddenly clicks into place.
She remembers now the smirking girl is Asian's personal maid, Millicent. Sarah realizes her previous assumption that Millicent's harassment was ordered by her stepmother was strange, as a personal maid wouldn't have contact with her. The awful truth dawns on her. She couldn't see it before because she blindly trusted Isiane.
Just then, Isiane enters the room, observing that Sarah looks pale.
Isiane puts on a show of shock and sympathy over the ruined accessories.
While Sarah calmly theorizes it was an accident, Isiane frets that they won't be ready for tomorrow.
Sarah calmly tells her she'll try to repair them herself before bidding her farewell.
Isiane watches silently as Sarah leaves and the door clicks shut. Millicent serves Isiane tea, reporting that her task has been successfully handled. Isiane sips her tea with a smug smile, agreeing with her maid. She muses on how beautifully her plan worked and how priceless Sarah's devastated expression was. Though surprised Sarah managed to outwit their father, Isiane vows she won't let her succeed. With a sinister smile, she declares that she will be the one chosen as the Saintess. She coldly decides Sarah is better suited to a life in the shadows, dressed in rags. Confident Sarah cannot repair the accessories and will miss the ball, Isiane eagerly anticipates the following day. At the Martins' estate, Isiane stands resplendent in her pink gown, surrounded by adoring maids. A maid congratulates Lady Isiane, telling her that her perfect beauty will captivate every man there. Isiane bashfully dismisses the compliment, offering a sweet thank you. Her mother smirks, confident that Isiane is beautiful enough to even catch the Emperor's eye. She then looks around, wondering aloud what is keeping Sarah. Just then, Sarah appears behind them, looking breathtaking in a brilliant blue ball gown. Her stepmother's face twists in utter shock and disbelief. Isiane stares, speechless and stunned by the sudden turn of events. As Sarah stands confidently, Isiane internally panics, wondering how this is possible when she destroyed all of Sarah's accessories. In a flashback, Sarah looks at her ruined jewelry, thinking Millicent went too far. She then opens a drawer, revealing another jewelry box. Opening the small, ornate box, a memory surfaces. She remembers her mother giving her the box, calling it a cherished keepsake from her father. Her mother advised her to keep it with her always, no matter what happened. Young Sarah reflects sadly that perhaps her mother was always waiting for the Count to return, as she looks at the beautiful jewelry inside. Resolved, Sarah decides that while she didn't want to use the keepsake, she has no other choice now. Now, in the present, Sarah stands elegantly, her mother's jewelry perfectly complementing her gown. The maids gasp in surprise, wondering if it's really Lady Sarah. As Sarah gazes forward, an onlooker thinks she is absolutely stunning. Isiane's eyes burn with jealousy and frustration. Noticing her family's stunned silence, Sarah coolly asks her stepmother what's wrong. She smiles sweetly, explaining she simply wore a spare set of accessories she had. Isiane forces a smile, privately fuming that Sarah, of all people, managed to steal the spotlight. Her mother's face darkens as she vows not to let Sarah outshine Isiane. He furiously yells at Sarah to be more modest, calling her a bastard. Sarah calmly retorts that she is using what she has, and her mother-in-law has no reason to scold her. Pressing her advantage, she asks if her stepmother truly wants her to appear in shabby attire. She argues that a poorly dressed bastard would only damage the Martins' family name, making her stepmother flinch. Sarah reminds her that their family's influence is already weak, so they should avoid any more foolish mistakes. A glowing vision of a past Saintess appears. A narration explains the Saintess's sacred duty to protect the Empire from demons. It's revealed that for generations, the Martins family has failed to produce a Saintess, weakening their position. Sarah suggests that if both she and Isiane are dazzling, it will serve as a powerful warning to their rivals. Her stepmother sneers, calling her a wallflower and insisting that Isiane, the true daughter, is enough. You two,
their father's voice booms as Count Martins appears, demanding to know why they are still in the entrance hall. His wife immediately complains, pointing out that Sarah is outshining Isyan.
The Count dismisses her concerns, stating it's a ball and they'll be late, leaving both his wife and Isyan stunned.
Smiling triumphantly, Sarah leads the way, telling a reluctant Isyan it's time to go.
Isyan manages a weak yes through a strained smile.
Their grand carriage arrives at the brightly lit venue for the debutante ball.
Inside, Isiane beams with excitement while Sarah watches her with a distant expression.
Sarah thinks grimly about returning to this place once again. Her thoughts flash to a vision of a sinister man and Duke Helden's bloody death, stealing her resolve to prevent that future.
Her first priority is to find Duke Helden and make contact, but she feels a moment of uncertainty.
Upon entering, both Sarah and Isiane are immediately swarmed by eager young noblemen.
Sarah is shocked to find herself even more popular than Isiane, so crowded she can barely move. She recalls how in her past life, her shabby clothes made her an outcast while Isiane shined, noting how appearances are everything.
Deciding she has no time to waste on this, she plans her escape.
She gracefully excuses herself from the throng of admirers, claiming she is thirsty.
Her glittering dress trails behind her as she walks away from the crowd.
Sarah finds a quiet spot in the garden, hoping she's finally escaped the crowd. A voice from the bushes compares her to a lovely blue rose.
Confused by the odd compliment, she turns to see who spoke.
A man with brown hair emerges, introducing himself as a viscount and offering a dance to ward off her other admirers.
Sarah is alarmed, wondering if this strange man followed her from the ballroom.
She politely declines, claiming she is too nervous, but he insists on guiding her.
He extends his hand with a smug grin, declaring it a great honor to dance with him.
She insists she's fine, but he brushes off her refusal as mere modesty.
Ha ha, he breathes with a sinister look, telling her she can thank him after their dance, making Sarah realize with alarm that he isn't listening at all.
As he grabs her arm, she desperately thinks for someone to help her.
Suddenly, a white-haired man appears behind the Viscount, authoritatively telling him to stop.
Sarah looks on in stunned silence at her unexpected rescuer.
The white-haired man repeats his command, his expression unyielding.
Her eyes widen in shock as she recognizes him. Duke Helden.
Ouch, ouch, ouch!
The Viscount cries out as Duke Helden twists his arm back.
The Viscount stammers in surprise, recognizing the imposing Duke Helden.
Duke Helden coldly asks the man if he can't see that Sarah dislikes his advances.
The Viscount protests, claiming he thought she was just pretending to be coy.
He indignantly declares that as a Viscount's son, it's only natural for beautiful women to adore him. Sarah looks at him with disdain, thinking he is a truly pitiable person.
She steps forward, telling the Viscount she has something to inform him of.
With unwavering confidence, she reveals that her rank is higher than his.
The Viscount's face contorts in disbelief at her declaration.
Duke Helden sternly commands the man to understand his position, apologize to her, and leave immediately. The terrified Viscount quickly apologizes and scrambles away. As he flees, Duke Helden stands guard while Sarah looks on with relief.
She thinks to herself, surprised that Duke Helden, of all people, came to her rescue. She reflects that her whole reason for being here was to get closer to the Duke, so she should almost thank the man who just accosted her.
With a radiant smile, she turns to the Duke and thanks him for helping her.
He simply states that she appeared to be in trouble.
An awkward silence hangs between them as he looks away.
Sarah recalls that Duke Helden is known for being slow to open up to others.
She remembers that while he's kind to his inner circle, he's guarded with everyone else, and it took a long time to get to know him in her past life.
Now, facing a time limit, she realizes she must find a way to get closer to him quickly. As he seems ready to depart, she calls out in a panic, begging him not to leave yet.
Just then, a young woman in a yellow gown appears, calling out for Duke Heldon and asking where he went.
Nanarik, daughter of Baron Sonyer, declares that she won't leave until he does.
Duke Heldon's face darkens with annoyance as Nanarik calls him my dearest.
He mutters that this is bad, and he needs to hide immediately. Seeing his predicament, Sarah confidently tells him to leave this to her.
Before a bewildered Duke Heldon can react, she pulls him away.
Nanarik arrives in the clearing, convinced she heard the Duke's voice coming from that direction. She stops short, her eyes wide with surprise at the scene before her.
Sarah holds Duke Heldon in an embrace, politely asking Nanarik to excuse them as they are having a private moment. Flustered, Nanarik immediately apologizes for the intrusion. She stands back, confused by the unexpected development. She hesitates, thinking for a moment before realizing that the man with the blonde woman is indeed Duke Heldon. Annoyed, she thinks she won't let this woman hide him, as Duke Heldon looks on warily.
Sarah coolly denies knowing anyone by that name.
She places a hand on his chest, adding that her darling is one of a kind. The silver-haired man is flustered by her sudden closeness. To shew an admirer, she acts intimate with the silver-haired man, calling him darling. She directly confronts the woman who was watching them. Her words hit their mark, stunning the eavesdropping lady. Humiliated, the lady flees into the garden.
She apologizes, explaining it was the only way to get rid of the admirer.
Blushing, she thinks she's never been so bold, even with Oluis in her past life. He remarks on her surprising boldness. Flustered, she claims she was just repaying his help. With the favor returned, she quickly tries to leave. He watches her leave, his expression unreadable. As she walks away, he calls for her to wait. He stops her to properly introduce himself as Theodore Heldon. He explains his troubles with a persistent admirer and thanks Sarah for her help. She understands now why he had helped her earlier. Standing in the moonlit garden, she introduces herself as Sarah Martins.
Theodore promises to remember her and offers his future assistance.
She is visibly moved by his kind offer.
She smiles, vowing to remember their encounter as well.
He suggests she return to the ball first to avoid suspicion.
Grateful for his thoughtfulness, she bids him farewell.
The grand estate glitters under the starry night sky. She reflects proudly on her successful, albeit embarrassing plan.
Suddenly, a man with long red hair appears behind her.
He bumps into her, causing her to lose her balance and scream. Having fallen, she hears the man apologize profusely. He admits that he wasn't paying attention. As he offers a hand, she accepts, sharing the blame for the accident. Her eyes widen in shock as she recognizes him. He holds out his hand, his expression calm. A moment of stunned silence passes between them under the full moon. Her mind screams his name, Oluis. She can't believe it's him. She remembers being called the Empire's budding rose.
And the man before her is none other than the Crown Prince.
She quickly excuses herself and tries to walk away, but he stops her with a single word.
He notes her unfamiliar face, asking if it's her debut. He then questions how she knew his identity. Panicking, she realizes her knowledge of him is suspicious since they're strangers. She mentally berates herself for mixing up past life memories with the present. Determined to avoid him, she desperately seeks a way out of the conversation. She begins to craft an excuse for her knowledge. She flatters him, praising his flawless demeanor and elegant aura.
Her strange compliments leave him utterly baffled.
She internally contrasts her current self with her past, knowing Oluis prefers obedient women. A memory surfaces of him praising her past self's gentleness and honesty. The memory reveals his past charm and her former naivete. She continues her flattery, now praising his penetrating insight. His gaze, she adds, holds a cold precision.
She concludes that only a future emperor could possess such qualities.
Sarah worries that the red-haired man won't like her forward attitude.
She thinks that by calling him fit for the throne, she's backing him into a corner. He smirks, confirming her suspicion that he is obsessed with securing the throne. Rumble. Sarah realizes he's figured her out, and he smugly introduces himself as Crown Prince Oluise.
His eye narrows as he notes her unexpected elegance at her debutante ball. He's impressed that she shows no fear in the presence of the crown prince. He stares at the poised woman, wondering who she could possibly be.
With a charming smile, he extends his hand and asks her for a dance.
Sarah is taken aback by his sudden invitation.
She politely declines, explaining she's due for her debutante presentation.
As she turns to leave, a shocked Oluise calls out for her to wait. He watches her walk away, an intrigued expression on his face. Clutching his chest, he wonders about the strange feeling she stirred in him. He notices a dropped earring with an intricate emblem engraved on it.
He recognizes the crest with a devilish grin, realizing it belongs to the Martins family.
As she disappears, he vows to discover her identity later.
Later that night, Sarah sits in her bed, reflecting on the evening's events.
She recalls that in her past life, she never even met the crown prince. She smiles, satisfied she succeeded in meeting Duke Helden and vowing to get closer to save him from his fate.
The narrative explains a dangerous, forbidden dark magic, its secrets closely guarded.
A vision of Isiane holding a potion appears as the narrator wonders how she learned to make it.
The answer lies in the temple library's basement, where such information is stored. Sarah looks concerned, knowing only saintesses and select priests have access.
As a mere candidate, Isiane should never have been allowed to enter the basement. She remembers Isiane framing her for a crime in her past life.
Recalling Isiane's interactions with Oluise, Sarah realizes he wasn't her source of information either. She's left to wonder who taught Isiane about the deadly Jaka venom.
Sarah steels her resolve to keep a close watch on Isiane and avoid Oluise.
With the grim image of a guillotine behind her, she vows to ensure she is never chosen as the Saintess.
The next morning, a smiling Isiane greets someone, commenting on their tiredness. Sarah returns the greeting as Isiane's mother praises Isiane for the attention she drew at the ball. The mother proudly presents a tray, overflowing with cards from hopeful noble sons. These cards are explained as formal declarations of interest from young men.
Receiving such cards is a matter of great importance for noble daughters.
Isiane's mother sneers, pointing out that someone didn't receive a single one.
Sarah listens stoically as the woman calls her embarrassing for putting on airs.
Isiane thinks to herself that a bastard could never compete with her anyway. With a sinister smile, she plots to marry into a powerful family to secure her future. Her ultimate target is revealed to be His Highness, Crown Prince Oluise. She confidently vows that the next time they meet, she will win him over. Her mother turns on Sarah, angrily demanding to know what she was doing. She admonishes Sarah to learn from Isiane, but Sarah silently celebrates achieving her goal of meeting Duke Helden. She recalls having to spend half the night actively avoiding Crown Prince Oluise.
She sighs, thinking that dealing with him would just be annoying.
Suddenly, a man bursts into the room to make an announcement. He presents a formal black card, declaring it has arrived for Lady Sarah.
Isiane and her mother stare in disbelief at the unexpected delivery.
Their eyes widen in shock as they recognize the card's distinctive emblem. They gasp, realizing with horror that the card is from the royal family. The two women look on in stunned silence as a knight prepares to open the royal summons.
Her memory lingers on the encounter as she vows to never forget it.
She stares at a black envelope, recalling the sweet scent that emanated from it.
The sender of the letter is revealed to be the crown prince, Oluise Landrich.
In a sunlit room, Uli relaxes on a chaise lounge, lost in thought.
He recalls checking the attendance list to confirm a name.
He remembers her name, Sarah. Recalling the ball, he thinks that she showed neither fear nor flattery, but dignity.
He muses that she was the first woman to ever call him cold. Intrigued by her, Oluis decides he wants to speak with her again. He moves from the chaise lounge to sit at his writing desk.
With a quill, he begins to pen a letter on fine stationery. He hands the sealed letter to his attendant, ordering it to be delivered. Suddenly, the attendant rushes back into the room, calling out to His Highness.
He announces that the Empress is calling for Oluis, who looks displeased by the summons.
Annoyed, Oluis runs a hand through his hair and agrees to go. The scene transitions, marking the beginning of the next chapter. Oluis, now in a formal red coat, walks toward a grand room.
Inside, a red-haired woman in a green gown sternly tells him he's late.
Oluis wearily asks the Empress what the problem is this time.
Smirking, she taunts him, asking if he truly doesn't already know.
She informs him his proposed policy was rejected by the council for being too costly. Instead, the council approved Duke Helden's superior proposal, a bitter blow to Oluis. Oluis reels in shock and frustration at the news of his failure.
The Empress berates him for his incompetence, unfavorably comparing him to Duke Helden. Her words echo in his mind as she questions why he is such a failure.
She slams her hand down, warning him to stop the nobles from supporting Duke Helden for emperor.
Grabbing him, she screams that he must quickly prove his capabilities as a future ruler.
Oluis seethes, thinking resentfully that Theodore is always in his way.
The Empress warns that he is losing the nobles' support and the emperor's attention, which will soon belong to another woman.
A memory shows the emperor with a dark-haired woman whom the Empress curses as a harlot.
The Empress vows she will never allow that outcome, as Oluis's expression hardens. A flashback shows a young, confident Theodore and a sullen, younger Oluis.
The narration explains that despite Theodore's natural advantage in age and experience, perfection was demanded of Oluis.
The reason was simple. Theodore was born with exceptional, almost divine talent. While Oluis was not ordinary, he inevitably seemed lacking in comparison to his gifted rival.
The Empress, in particular, relentlessly demanded that Oluis prove himself superior to Theodore.
For every mistake, a young Oluis was harshly punished and branded a failure.
No matter how hard he trained, Oluis could never bridge the vast gap between his abilities and Theodore's.
Filled with resolve, Oluis vows that he will prove his abilities next time.
The Empress changes the topic, inquiring about the debutante ball and any suitable candidates.
Oluis confirms that he has, in fact, found someone he is interested in.
A menacing glint appears in the Empress's eyes.
She lifts his chin with her fan, ordering him to listen carefully.
She dictates that his future bride must come from a powerful family of at least a count's rank.
She specifically suggests someone from the Martins family, catching Oluis by surprise.
He briefly wonders if she means Sarah, the family's bastard, but quickly dismisses the thought.
The Empress presses him, asking to whom he sent a card. Oluis evasively replies it was to a young lady from a count's household who piqued his interest. Pleased with his seemingly sensible choice, the Empress says she looks forward to seeing how things develop. With a dark, confident smirk, Oluis promises his mother she won't be disappointed. Oluis confirms he sent a card.
He recalls his mother's cutting words. His failure could never surpass Theodore.
The card formally requests a dance with her at their next meeting.
Enraged, Sarah wants to tear the crown prince's card to pieces.
Melinda scoffs, questioning why the crown prince would send Syra a card.
Isiane suspiciously asks when Sarah became close to the prince.
Ziane notes that while the prince spoke to many women, she never saw him speak to Syra.
Sarah downplays the encounter as a brief greeting unworthy of a card. Isiana seethes with jealousy, furious that Sarah received a card from the prince, while she only got invitations from lower nobles, and she vows not to forgive her.
Sarah feels the weight of Isiane's fury, shocked by the turn of events.
Count Martins enters the room, bidding them good morning.
Isiane cheerfully greets her father.
The Count notes that Isiane seems to have received many cards.
His gaze then shifts, a comparison forming in his mind.
He turns to Sarah, questioning if she only received a single card. Melinda complains that this single card is all Sarah has to show for the extra funds she received.
In response, Sarah presents the single, impressive-looking envelope.
The Count gasps, recognizing the royal family's emblem on the seal.
Stunned, he whirls on Melinda, demanding to know the sender.
Melinda remains silent and furious as her husband demands an answer. A sudden, greedy smile spreads across the Count's face. He praises Sarah for finally acting like a true Martins, much to his relief. Melinda stares in disbelief, outraged by her husband's words. Isiane is aghast, questioning why a bastard would be chosen over her for the goddess's descent festival.
Sarah contemplates the mention of the goddess's descent festival.
The festival commemorates the day the goddess granted sacred power to a young girl. On this day, believers gather at the church to offer thanks to the goddess.
The Count explains that the church solicits tapestry designs from noble families with Saintess candidates.
Fed up with Baron Goyner's family winning every year, the Count declares that to crush their pride, he has decided to make Sarah and Isiane compete for the honor.
He stands over them, his decision made.
The two sisters are stunned by the announcement of a competition.
He tasks them with embroidering a tapestry design, with the winning piece being submitted to the church. Sarah realizes this is a new opportunity to outshine Isiane and win her father's favor, something that never happened in her past life. Melinda dismisses the competition, confident that the well-educated Isiane will win. She then orders Sarah to buy materials for both herself and Isiane. Sarah is taken aback by the unfair demand. Melinda sneers that Isiane is too busy with her many admirers to run errands. With a determined glare, Sarah agrees to go, the prince's letter still on the table. She picks up the royal invitation, her expression resolute. She decides to carefully consider her response to the prince's invitation later. She sets out into town to purchase the supplies. With her supplies gathered, she believes she has everything she needs.
A sudden, sharp sound makes her eyes fly open in shock.
Startled, she whips around, searching for the source of the noise. She spots a man fleeing down a narrow alley. Turning the corner, she witnesses an assault and bravely orders the attacker to stop, who demands to know who she is.
She confronts the man, demanding to know why he is being so violent.
The scarred man dismisses her as a noble and tells her to get lost.
She reflects on her past life as Oluis's thoughtless puppet.
Her past mistakes led to Duke Helden's death, a tragedy she vows never to repeat. She internally declares she cannot turn a blind eye to this injustice. She reaffirms her vow to live by her own will this time. Stepping forward, she pleads with the man to stop hurting the child.
The scarred attacker scoffs, asking if she really expected him to listen.
He demands money from her if she wants the violence to stop. With determined eyes, Sarah agrees to his demand.
She hands over a small pouch, worrying it won't be enough to satisfy them.
The injured boy weakly urges her to hurry and run away.
Kneeling beside him, she refuses, promising that she will save him.
The boy stares up at her, his eyes wide with shocked disbelief.
Enraged by the small sum, the attacker accuses her of mocking him. Shielding the boy, Sarah realizes they won't accept the money.
The man's face twists with rage as he snarls that it's enough.
He raises a knife, screaming at her for looking down on commoners. As he lunges, she instinctively shields the boy with her own body. Frozen in terror, she panics. realizing she's too scared to move. The attacker mockingly compliments her for having the guts to stand her ground.
The enraged man screams, ready to strike.
He cruelly sentences them both to die together.
Suddenly, a white-haired man in a red coat appears, asking what they're doing and shocking the thugs.
His stern gaze locks onto the attacker as he finishes his question.
Seira looks up in astonishment, recognizing him as Duke Helden.
Duke Helden declares their actions grave crimes and orders his men to arrest them immediately.
He kneels to ask if she's hurt, but she insists she's fine.
Relieved, he explains he was on patrol for the upcoming festival inspection. He recalls seeing her enter the street while he was checking the route's safety.
He explains that he followed her out of concern and discovered the attack. Looking at her with concern, he apologizes for being late.
She smiles warmly, thanking him and telling him not to apologize.
He offers to ensure she gets home safely by carriage, an offer she accepts.
She hesitates for a moment before speaking again.
Looking at the injured child, she asks if he can be taken to her estate.
The Duke cautions her that taking in a child of unknown identity is risky.
He suggests taking the boy to the garrison via the temple for possible treatment.
She recalls with worry that the temple is short on Saintess candidates.
A memory reminds her that even nobles who donate must wait for care.
She concludes that the boy would never receive proper treatment there. Her expression firms with unwavering resolve. She declares that the Martins family will take full responsibility for the boy. She knows she must get him to her estate to use her sacred healing powers. Duke Helden observes her, thinking most nobles would never help an orphan. He marvels at her unhesitating courage, so different from other nobles.
A small smile appears on his face as he agrees to her request.
Overjoyed and relieved, Seira thanks him profusely. He thinks to himself that she is nothing like other arrogant noblewomen. As he drapes his cloak over them, he admires her compassion for all people. He muses that with such a person, the kingdom would surely flourish. She gently strokes the sleeping boy's hair, a soft smile on her face.
A grand carriage arrives at the Martins' estate, awaited by maids.
A maid welcomes Lady Seira, stunned to see her return in such a grand carriage. A maid watches Seira and the Duke, plotting to tell Lady Izian about the expensive carriage.
The maid's expression shifts as she notices the emblem on the carriage door.
Her eyes widen in shock. It's the Duke's royal emblem.
Stunned, the maids realize the man's identity is far greater than they imagined. They collectively gasp in disbelief. Duke Helden.
Duke Helden stands before them, the very picture of nobility.
Seira, Duke Helden, and the injured boy form an unexpected and striking trio. The maids reel, wondering why Lady Seira is with the Duke.
A maid recalls that Duke Helden is a highly sought-after nobleman, just as Lady Izian had said.
They remain baffled as to why someone so important is accompanying Lady Seira. Duke Helden steps forward, formally requesting their assistance.
A flustered maid stammers a quick, affirmative response. Inside the grand estate, the staff assembles to receive the important guests. Seira immediately takes command, ordering warm water, clothes, and medicine, declaring she will treat the boy's wounds herself.
Cradling the boy, Seira explains his shyness and requests complete privacy for his care.
A maid bows her head, acknowledging her lady's command. A pink-haired young woman arrives, demanding to know the source of the commotion.
Looking down from the staircase, she tries to make sense of the scene below. Her eyes widen in complete and utter shock. She sees Seira standing beside Duke Helden and seethes with jealousy. Furious that Seira is now attracting the Duke in addition to the prince, she silently fumes at her stepsister's perceived greed.
With a determined step, she descends, vowing not to be outshone. She resolves that she, and she alone, will win the hearts of both His Highness and the Duke. Approaching with a flawless smile, she introduces herself as Isiane Martins,
and asks if her stepsister has caused any trouble.
Sarah watches warily, recognizing her stepsister's manipulative performance.
Duke Helden calmly informs Izyan that her sister has not offended him in any way.
He then praises Sarah, calling her both brave and kind.
Izyan's pleasant facade shatters, revealing a brief flash of pure fury.
She quickly regains her composure, expressing her relief and offering the Duke tea. Internally, she reaffirms her decision not to waste this golden opportunity. She remembers that the prince has already shown interest in Sarah by sending a card.
Her ambition burns as she vows to secure the man closest to the throne for herself.
Duke Helden remains silent and stoic, observing the interaction.
After Izyan's offer, the Duke politely declines, stating he must leave after greeting the Count.
He then turns to Sarah, who looks up at him in surprise. With a soft smile, he quietly bids her farewell until their next meeting. Sarah is momentarily speechless, a faint blush gracing her cheeks.
He leans in slightly, adding that he looks forward to seeing her exquisite embroidery.
Beaming with joy, she happily agrees, thrilled that he remembered.
From the side, Izyan watches their intimate exchange, her face a mask of disbelief and rage.
She seethes that he completely ignored her, wondering what trick Sarah is playing.
With a wicked glint in her eye, she vows to capture both men's hearts during the upcoming festival, no matter what it takes.
The scene transitions to a grand, sun-drenched bathroom. Sarah dismisses the maids, thanking them and saying she will handle the rest herself.
Kneeling beside the large tub, she tells the boy she will treat his wounds first. The injured boy looks up at her, hesitantly stammering her title.
She looks back at him with a kind and encouraging smile.
The boy finally musters the courage to ask why she is helping him.
He continues, pointing out that they are strangers, and her kindness seems to have no reason.
He looks down sadly, revealing that he once lived in an orphanage.
He recalls the orphanage's cruelty, where caretakers beat children who didn't curry favor.
Hating the abuse, he ran away.
His escape led to being caught by slavers, who nearly sold him to a brothel.
He luckily escaped when his captors argued with a potential buyer.
Alone on the streets, he then ran into the thugs Sarah saved him from.
The boy concludes from his suffering that he's not worthy of kindness.
He believes that love and kindness always come at a price. He asks how he should pay Sarah, while she resolves to teach him a kinder truth.
Gently touching his hair, she tells him he doesn't need to pay anything.
She explains she is helping because she wants to, taking his hand as a divine light surrounds her.
As radiant energy flows from their hands, the boy wonders what is happening.
Stunned, he realizes his pain is gone and asks what she did.
Sarah reveals she used sacred healing power and asks him to keep it their little secret.
Now completely healed, the boy beams and happily promises to keep her secret.
Sarah caresses his cheek, thinking her secret will be safe with a commoner.
The boy stands, vowing to keep her secret and repay his debt, promising he'll be of help to her.
He eagerly offers to serve her in any way, surprising Sarah with his proposal. Blushing with hope, he asks if his offer is not okay. Overwhelmed by his pure gaze, Sarah finds his earnest expression almost too much to handle.
She considers the situation, realizing she'll need her father's permission to employ him.
Sarah strategizes, assuming her father is already pleased about her growing connection with Duke Helden. Believing the timing is perfect, she decides to ask her father for permission right away.
The boy lights up with joy, thanking her profusely for the opportunity.
Sarah smiles and tells him the first step is to get him cleaned up.
After she's finished, she looks at him in surprised disbelief. The boy, now impeccably dressed, happily asks how he looks.
A little flustered, Sarah smiles and tells him he looks great. She instructs him to wait for her in the grand hallway.
With a click, Sarah enters her father's study to ask for his help. Her father greets her enthusiastically, impressed by her new connection with Duke Helden.
Sarah timidly confirms his assumption.
Her father recalls Duke Heldon praising Saira as a kind person who treats everyone equally. The Duke's praise continues, comparing her admirable character to that of a Saintess. Pleased by the Duke's report, her father declares that the orphan will serve as her personal attendant.
Saira is overjoyed and thanks her father profusely.
Her father explains that this act of charity will enhance their family's reputation and orders her to continue bringing them prestige.
She smiles brightly and agrees.
Returning to the boy, she calls him by his new name, Loomis.
She claps her hands cheerfully, welcoming him into her care.
Loomis blushes happily and gives a heartfelt yes. He promptly kneels, pledging to devote himself to serving Lady Saira.
On one knee, Loomis vows his unwavering loyalty.
An interlude page showcases the series' main characters.
The scene shifts to Saira's room, where she proudly displays her finished embroidery.
She feels confident her design can finally compete with the previous winner from her past life.
She recalls Isian's design from her past life, remembering a grapevine embroidery.
Loomis interrupts her thoughts, calling out her name.
With a friendly smile, he suggests she take a break now that her work is finished.
Saira reflects on how thoughtful Loomis was to suggest bandages to conceal his miraculous recovery and protect her secret.
Agreeing with his suggestion, she invites him to have tea in the dining room.
Loomis proudly shows off his new uniform. He beams, announcing he has memorized the mansion's layout.
Struck by his cuteness, Saira thinks he's unbearably adorable.
The scene transitions to the dining room.
Loomis asks Saira how she will respond to the prince's card.
Saira decides to write her reply after tea.
She reflects on using the embroidery contest as an excuse to delay her response. She frets, admitting she doesn't want to write to him at all.
Loomis hesitantly offers to write the reply for her. Surprised, Saira asks if Loomis knows how to write.
She smiles kindly and politely declines his offer.
Loomis respectfully accepts her decision.
Saira plans to act dull during tea so the prince will lose interest.
Deciding to enjoy the moment, she offers Loomis some cookies.
He takes a bite and his eyes widen in delight. Saira invites him to eat with her, happy he enjoys them.
Elsewhere, a sinister maid plots with Saira's embroidery.
Saira returns to her room, only to find her embroidery is gone.
Panicked, she realizes it was stolen while Loomis offers to check the laundry.
She desperately hopes to find the piece she worked so hard on.
A carriage arrives at the estate.
The sound of its arrival catches Saira's attention.
She sees her father returning and realizes the house will get busy.
Worried, she thinks she needs to call Loomis back. Saira's thoughts drift to an embroidery she saw, admiring its meticulous detail.
Her eyes widen in sudden, horrified realization.
She finds her father congratulating Isian for a beautiful embroidery, her embroidery.
Isiane feigns modesty, claiming her work is nothing special. Saira stares in stunned silence at the betrayal. The maids shower Isian with praise for her lovely work.
Saira's sharp voice cuts through the chatter, startling everyone.
Furious, she confronts Isian, declaring the embroidery is hers.
Isiane plays innocent, insisting the piece is clearly her own. Saira cries out in disbelief, knowing she's being lied to. Isian's innocent facade briefly cracks, revealing her anger. She bursts into tears, wailing about how cruel this is after her hard work.
A maid steps in to defend Isiane, accusing Saira of baseless claims.
Another maid agrees, telling Saira it's unfair to be angry without proof.
Saira knows that arguing will only make her look worse.
She clenches her fist in frustration, unable to accept the injustice.
A maid tells her to look at Lady Isian's face for proof.
Crying to a maid named Millicent, Isian claims she pricked her finger while working.
Saira narrows her eyes, finding the story odd. She knows her own identical embroidery has gone missing. The maid confidently states that Saira has no proof. Saira counters, revealing she still has the original design draft, and questioning if Izyan does too. As Izyan falters, the maid points to the embroidery itself.
The maid reveals Izyan's initials are on the piece, and Sarah realizes they were added after the theft.
Her father's voice silences the room with a single word: enough.
He declares the initials are proof and demands Sarah stop accusing her sister of theft.
A glint of triumph shines in Izyan's eyes as she smiles victoriously.
Saira knows arguing is pointless. Her father will always believe Izyan.
Realizing she must back down, her father coldly tells her to focus on her own work.
Her mind screams with pure, unadulterated frustration. Acknowledging Izyani's victory, Sarah seethes at her sister's wicked, triumphant smirk. As she walks away defeated, Loomis watches her with deep concern.
Loomis bursts out in frustration, insisting that the magnificent embroidery is hers.
Deciding it's wiser to create a new piece with only 3 days left, Sarah reviews her original sketches.
She resolves to come up with a design that will completely surpass the stolen one.
A wave of doubt washes over her as she wonders if she can finish in time. Surrounded by crumpled failures, Sarah despairs, unable to create a better design. A knock at the door is followed by a soft, "Excuse me." Loomis enters the dark room, holding a lantern to light the way.
He gently urges his lady to get some rest, despite the limited time.
Touched by his worry, Sarah realizes Loomis won't rest if she doesn't, and finally agrees.
She tells him they'll both sleep, postponing her worries for tomorrow.
Loomis gives her a sweet, surprising peck on the cheek.
Flustered and blushing, Sarah touches her cheek in shock. He explains with a smile that it's a good night charm his mother taught him. Finding him utterly adorable, she softly thanks him for his kindness.
The next day, an awkward silence hangs over the breakfast table.
A butler formally approaches and addresses Lady Sarah.
He presents a wax-sealed letter announcing a reply from the Crown Prince. The news sends a shockwave through the room, stunning Izyan and her father. Sarah is bewildered, having already sent a reply declining his dance invitation. The prince's letter dismisses her refusal and instead commands her to join him at a palace art exhibition that afternoon.
Sarah stares at the letter, her expression hardening with annoyance.
The butler adds that an envoy awaits an immediate response, leaving Sarah feeling cornered. However, she reconsiders, realizing this could be an opportunity for design inspiration.
As Sarah prepares to leave, Loomis encourages her to do her best.
With a grateful smile, she thanks him and departs for the palace.
Her expression turns serious as she steels herself for the encounter ahead. She resolves not to let Prince Olweis develop any more interest in her. At a grand palace hallway, an attendant instructs her to wait for His Highness.
Sarah quietly acknowledges the instruction.
Her eyes widen in surprise as she spots something unexpected across the room.
She sees Prince Olweis conversing with an unfamiliar gray-haired woman.
The woman is introduced as Annika Deschamps, who expertly discusses a painting's unique three-dimensional technique.
The prince compliments Annika's artistic knowledge, which she humbly downplays. Watching other ladies gather nearby, Sarah understands the situation. She wryly notes that Olweis has gathered all potential fiancés to make his selection. Relieved, she focuses on her true purpose, gathering ideas for her design. Two noble women gossip about Sarah wandering alone, questioning her motives. They identify her as Count Martin's daughter and assume she's seeking attention. While they deem her improper, Sarah smirks, hearing every word of their critique. Prince Olweis notices her, intrigued that she ignores him while other ladies vie for his attention. He recalls his mother arranged this event to help him choose a wife, making special treatment inappropriate. He admits, however, that Sarah is the only one who has truly captured his interest. He smiles, glad this event finally forced her to appear after she'd repeatedly declined his invitations. An attendant's voice cuts through his thoughts, calling for His Highness.
Annika scolds the prince for being distracted by other women.
Prince Oluis smoothly asks what she means and urges her to continue.
Annika happily invites the prince to view her family's art collection.
Prince Oluis internally scoffs, finding power-hungry women to be an unpleasant nuisance. Elsewhere, Sarah stands alone, lamenting her lack of inspiration.
Annoyed, she recalls slipping away to avoid Oluis and now feels lost. A sudden movement catches her eye, and she turns in surprise.
It's the handsome white-haired Duke Heldon, framed by blue roses.
Duke Heldon greets a surprised Sarah, who thanks him for his earlier help.
He asks about her embroidery, and her expression becomes troubled.
She admits with a sad look that it's not going well.
The Duke offers her a warm, knowing smile.
He encourages her, certain she'll create something wonderful after struggling so much.
A tense Prince Oluis appears, questioning what's happening.
Duke Theodore Heldon formally offers his greetings to the Empire's young rose.
Prince Oluis observes with narrowed eyes, noting this is a new side of the Duke.
The prince notes Sarah's happiness with the Duke and decides to intervene.
Prince Oluis interrupts, reminding the Duke of their friendly terms.
He coolly informs the Duke that he invited Lady Martins to the palace. Grabbing her arm, the prince warns the Duke not to steal his guest.
The prince smirks triumphantly, pulling a nervous Sarah closer to him. With a hand on her shoulder, he tells the Duke to stop interfering.
The Duke stares in stunned silence.
He formally apologizes, claiming he didn't know she was the prince's guest.
The prince leads a hesitant Sarah away.
Sarah and the prince turn their backs, leaving the Duke behind.
The Duke watches them go with a grim expression.
He reflects on the unexpected encounter, realizing the crown prince summoned her. The Duke believes a sharp woman like Sarah would be a great asset to the future emperor. But seeing her with another man, he clutches his chest, flustered. Blushing, the Duke questions his own surprising thoughts. The scene shifts to an ornate, sunlit garden gate.
Sarah nervously addresses the prince, her voice trailing off.
She tells him to unhand her, worried his actions will start rumors.
He leans in close, provocatively asking if she dislikes rumors about them. The prince challenges her to complain so he can take responsibility. Furious, Sarah demands he stop his shameless behavior.
With a shove, she pushes him away.
He smirks, remarking on her family's trademark rigidity.
Sarah glares at him with pure contempt.
The prince's playful demeanor vanishes, replaced by a serious look.
He looks her in the eye and offers a sincere apology.
Sarah stares back, completely surprised by his words. As she reels from his sincerity, he smiles and suggests they have tea together. He gently kisses her hand, calling her name with a soft look. Back in her room, Sarah rests her head on a table, pondering Oluis's behavior.
She finds him incomprehensible, wondering if he was always this way.
She recalls him treating her like any other lady, but now he's different.
Shaking her head, she reminds herself he's the man who had her executed.
She refocuses her thoughts on completing her embroidery before the deadline.
A blonde woman sits with a pensive expression.
A white-haired man in uniform smiles amidst blue roses.
The blonde woman greets her parents, who sit at a breakfast table.
Her father asks if she understands his intent for the competition. She confirms she does and presents her finished embroidery.
A pink-haired woman named Sarah asks if she's finished the embroidery.
Izyan inwardly scoffs, curious what she could have made in 2 days.
The blonde woman confidently presents the finished cloth.
Unveiling a stunning golden bird on red fabric, she shocks her father.
Her mother sneers, calling the embroidery minimalistic compared to Izyan's.
Izyan agrees internally, finding it unimpressive.
She smirks, pitying poor Sarah, and confident she will win. The blonde woman calmly asks her mother to look closer. Her mother dismisses it as sloppy work.
The blonde woman reveals the thread is dyed in a color exclusive to the Martins family.
Iziane and her mother gasp in utter shock.
Her father realizes it is the special dye granted by the emperor.
She explains the church will now recognize their family's prestige.
She predicts the citizens of the empire will be captivated by it.
A crowd of people marvels at the beautiful, unseen colors.
Her father is left completely stunned and speechless.
She explains that although they have a monopoly, the dye isn't yet popular.
She declares this will boost sales, prioritizing their family's prosperity.
Wham! Her mother furiously objects, yelling, "You can't!"
Her father silences her, refusing objections and calling them to breakfast.
The blonde woman smiles victoriously as Iziane glares from behind.
Iziane seethes, enraged that this happened after she had the original embroidery stolen.
She fumes that her moment to shine has been stolen and everything is ruined.
A dark vow forms in her mind. She will not forgive this. The father reviews a document, his decision made.
He proudly informs Sarah that her embroidery was chosen for the church.
Sarah blushes with a bright smile, saying she's honored.
She credits her success entirely to the Duke's encouragement.
Her father instructs her to attend the church meeting that afternoon.
A priest welcomes her, looking forward to their work together.
Sarah offers a nervous but polite reply.
Her calm expression shatters as she realizes who is present.
The red-haired Prince Oluis stands there with a confident smirk.
Sarah stares, completely shocked by his unexpected appearance.
The priest reassures her, explaining His Highness is just here for an introduction.
Oluis expresses his hope for a splendid festival, and Sarah vows to do her best.
His hand gently touches the golden embroidery on the red cloth.
As she leaves, Oluis calls out to Lady Martins.
He approaches, praising her outstanding embroidery.
He shocks her by asking her to embroider his handkerchief, and she thinks, of all people, it had to be him.
He hopes to see the royal crest and his initials on it when she returns it.
She clutches the handkerchief, beginning to refuse the request.
She tells him it's far too great an honor.
He smiles, insisting she is more than qualified for the task.
Elsewhere, a young boy excitedly praises Sarah for her work being chosen by the church, but she humbly calls it luck, while he tells her not to downplay her skills.
Prince Oluis recalls Sarah's predicament with her embroidery.
He realizes with a shock that Lady Iziane must have stolen it.
Loomis praises Sarah's incredible success, and she admits she was sad about her lost effort.
With a knowing smile, Sarah says the incident helped her recall a family die, so she should thank Iziane.
Prince Oluis reflects on her situation, understanding she's treated poorly within her family.
He admires how her unhealthy environment has made her clever and resourceful.
A smirk crosses his face as he admits to himself, I like her even more now.
He imagines them together, convinced she is the only woman worthy of being his empress.
Sarah faces Prince Oluis, stating she isn't worthy of embroidering his initials.
As she turns to leave, he reaches out in surprise and calls for her to wait. He angrily demands to know why she's so cold, realizing she's deliberately keeping her distance. He bitterly recalls how open and friendly she was with Duke Theodore.
Remembering the Duke's smile, the prince begins to formulate a plan.
He wonders what face Theodore would make if told that Lady Martins had embroidered his initials.
Taking a sip from his glass, he smiles, eagerly anticipating the outcome.
Back in her room, Sarah stares in disbelief at a letter she's received.
She's furious that he's demanding her embroidery, knowing the intimate meaning of the request.
She fumes over Oluis's fixation on her, vowing she'd never marry a man like him.
Exhausted, she wonders how she can possibly avoid this complicated situation.
The next morning, Loomis arrives early, and Sarah acknowledges his presence.
She enters her father's study, greeting him and asking why she was summoned.
Her father hands her a white lily, instructing her to deliver it to the temple immediately.
She's puzzled by the odd request of a single flower for the temple.
Holding the lily, she questions its purpose, noting he never asked this of her in her past life. Arriving at the Grand Temple, Sarah is met by a priest at the entrance.
The priest asks for her name and she introduces herself as Sarah Martins.
He calmly invites Lady Martins inside, and she thanks him with some apprehension.
Her eyes widen in horror as she sees the priests gathered inside the main hall.
She clutches the lily, recognizing a familiar stone on the altar.
Realizing it's a stone to measure sacred power, she panics, understanding this is a test for Saintess candidates.
The priest reveals the white lily is a secret code requesting a sacred power measurement. Stunned, Sarah exclaims, "What?" She had no idea the flower held such a meaning.
She recalls volunteering to become a Saintess in her past life because no one expected anything of her.
But now, she wonders if being given the lily means her father has expectations for her.
The priest instructs her to place her hand on the stone without delay. He explains that if the stone glows, it will prove her possession of sacred power. Seda is trapped, knowing refusal is suspicious, but revealing her power is dangerous.
The priest angrily asks if she came to disgrace them, and she nervously denies it.
Standing before the altar, she realizes she has no choice but to comply.
With dread, she places her hand on the stone, thinking this was never supposed to happen.
The priests gasp in unison as a light begins to emanate from the stone.
As the stone glows, the priest congratulates her, confirming she has sacred power.
Looking at the statue, she thinks with despair that she never wanted to be a Saintess again.
She stares at her hand on the glowing stone, wondering how everything went so wrong. In her carriage, she reels from the unexpected turn of events.
Her face is grim as she resolves to keep her sacred power hidden. She recalls her past life, where she asked the church to test her and became a Saintess candidate.
Her journey led her to save the emperor and become engaged to Prince Oluis.
But that path ended in tragedy, culminating in her killing Duke Heldon.
She finds a sliver of hope, realizing the stone only confirms the presence of her power, not its immense quantity. She realizes with horror that she's on track to meet the same tragic fate. Crying out in her mind, she rejects her grim future, determined not to die. Back at her mansion, Loomis greets her, informing her that her father is waiting.
Her father, Count Martins, bluntly asks how the test at the temple went.
With a heavy heart, Sarah confirms that she does indeed possess sacred power.
The Count's expression brightens with pride, praising her as his worthy daughter.
He then reveals that Izion was also tested yesterday and possesses sacred power as well. The Count declares that with 2 gifted daughters, the Martins family's chance of producing a Saintess is high.
Feigning a smile, Sarah says she is glad to have met his expectations. Her father smirks greedily, telling her they can now expect great things from her at the upcoming ball.
Sarah is confused, questioning the ball and realizing it never happened in her previous life.
The Count explains that the Emperor himself is hosting the ball, making attendance mandatory.
He presents an invitation, stating both she and Iziane must attend due to their sacred power.
Sarah's eyes widen in shock, her mind reeling from the news.
The invitation explicitly requires the attendance of Count Martins and any daughters with sacred power.
She realizes she wasn't invited in her past life because her power was still unknown. Her father instructs her to present herself well, as she may even gain an audience with His Majesty.
He adds with a knowing look that a certain someone already seems to like her, and Sarah's face falls.
Her thoughts race, her power is exposed, and Prince Oluis has already made a possessive request.
She worries he'll corner her at the ball, asking for a dance and demanding the embroidery. A terrifying vision of Prince Oluis trapping her fills her mind as she realizes she cannot escape.
The scene darkens, marking a passage of troubled time.
Huddled on her bed, Syra desperately wonders what she should do now.
But as her anxiety grows, she admits to herself that she can't think of a plan.
A knock sounds as Loomis calls her name from the doorway. He notes she's been in her room since returning from the temple and suggests she go outside.
Sarah thanks him with a weary smile, admitting she lost track of time. A concerned Loomis watches her leave the room. Rain begins to pour down on the estate's garden gazebo.
Standing under the shelter, Sarah laments that even a change of scenery hasn't brought her inspiration.
She feels trapped, questioning if she's truly destined to repeat her tragic fate. A man's voice suddenly calls out her name. Lady Martins?
She gasps, turning toward the unexpected sound.
A shimmering golden light cuts through the rain. It's Duke Heldon, holding an umbrella over her as he asks what brings her here. He explains that he often comes here on rainy days to be alone.
Embarrassed, Sarah apologizes for intruding on his quiet place and prepares to leave.
Duke Heldon gently tells her to wait.
He asks why she's alone in such weather, and she quietly denies that anything is wrong. He presses further, asking why she looks like she's on the verge of tears. Overwhelmed, Sarah suddenly stumbles forward. The Duke catches her in his arms, his eyes wide with shock.
As he holds her, he realizes her body is burning up with a fever.
He cries out her name in alarm as she collapses unconscious.
Sarah slowly awakens, finding herself back in her own bed. She sees Duke Heldon sitting beside her, watching her with a gentle smile. Startled, she sits up quickly, realizing she must apologize for what happened.
She begins to stammer an apology for having troubled him so much.
To her shock, he suddenly takes her hand in his. Duke Heldon smiles kindly, explaining he held her hand to calm her down while she was having a nightmare.
Still blushing from the kiss, Sarah stammers her thanks.
She reflects on how their roles were completely reversed in her past life.
She fondly recalls his kind gaze and the warmth of his hand. The memory of his gentle, handsome face shines in her mind. She wonders how she was ever blind to his kindness before. Resolved, she vows that her ultimate goal is to prevent Duke Heldon's death. She frets over attending the ball, knowing Crown Prince Olias will corner her about his embroidery request now that her sacred power is public. Panicked, she realizes refusing the prince is impossible, and her father will surely force an engagement.
She feels trapped by thorny vines, seeing an engagement to the prince as a point of no return.
With sudden clarity, she realizes there is only one way to protect the Duke and avoid the prince. She turns to Duke Heldon with a serious request, and he asks what she needs. Blushing but determined, she asks if he will get engaged to her. As he stares back with a serious expression, she inwardly pleads for his acceptance. Completely stunned by her proposal, he asks her to repeat herself.
She calmly confirms her proposal, leaving him to stammer that he understands but is still confused.
She begins to explain, pointing out that he is currently being pursued by Lady Saunier.
She adds that she's also in a bind, as a certain someone has troubled her with an embroidery request.
He looks surprised, questioning her mention of embroidery. She eagerly confirms, explaining that this is why their interests are perfectly aligned.
He processes her words, realizing she's proposing a strategic alliance to avoid their respective engagements.
She waits quietly for his answer, her expression earnest. He thinks to himself that he never imagined Lady Martins would propose, then agrees to her plan.
Relieved, she smiles and reassures him that their engagement will only be temporary.
His expression hardens slightly at the mention of it being temporary.
She foresees a future conflict between the Duke and Prince Olias for the throne.
She sits alone in a dark, thorny space, contemplating her fate. She concludes that if he were to become emperor, she wouldn't be worthy of being his empress. Theodore correctly deduces that Crown Prince Olias is her suitor, and she proposed to him because he's the prince's only rival. He clutches his chest,
confused and questioning why he feels so displeased that their engagement is only temporary.
Misreading his silence as rejection, she anxiously asks if her plan is no good.
She reminds herself she must get an answer for Lady Martins, who is relying on her. With sudden conviction, he formally declares that from this moment forward, he is her fiancé.
Overjoyed and sparkling with relief, she profusely thanks the Duke.
He gently corrects her, warning that calling him Duke will raise suspicion.
Blushing slightly, he asks her to call him by his given name from now on.
He gazes at her, waiting for her to process his more intimate request.
He smiles warmly, encouraging her to use his name.
He softly says her name, Sarah, startling her.
He adds that their official engagement requires an accessory, which he will send over immediately.
As he turns to leave, she curiously wonders what he means by an accessory.
A narrative explains the Landrich Empire's custom of wearing accessories matching a partner's eye color to signify engagement.
She recalls that her previous engagement to Alias was publicly declared, making an accessory unnecessary, and realizes she completely forgot the custom.
Patan.
He suddenly returns to her room.
He holds out a small box, opening it to reveal a beautiful bracelet with a red gem.
With gentle hands, he fastens the delicate, sparkling bracelet onto her wrist.
He kneels before her, tenderly holding her newly adorned hand.
He then raises her hand to his lips, placing a soft kiss upon it. Utterly stunned by the romantic gesture, she can only blush.
He looks up, declaring her his fiancé and vowing to protect her, which only makes her more flustered.
Panicked, she thinks, "No, I can't," and instinctively snatches her hand away.
The blonde woman reminds herself her relationship with the Duke is only temporary.
A voice declares it's wonderful that she has sacred power.
A proud, pink-haired woman exclaims, "As expected of my daughter."
The pink-haired Easy-Ann smiles while sipping tea, saying she's delighted.
The older woman suggests a new dress for the ball and calls for Millicent.
Isiane thinks to herself that possessing sacred power is only natural for her. She recalls the other noble daughters at the test, thinking they were nothing special.
Isiane fantasizes that becoming the next Saintess will let her marry the prince and become the empress.
With a sinister smile, she vows she must absolutely be chosen as the Saintess. A young man with black hair addresses Madame and Lady Isiane.
Loomis, dressed as a servant, pushes a tea cart and offers a refill.
The older woman calls him thoughtful, and he humbly replies he just wants the family to be comfortable.
Blushing, Loomis eagerly asks if there's anything else he can do.
Isiane smiles as the older woman expresses her surprise at his demeanor.
Loomis resolves to win their favor and gather information for Lady Syra.
The older woman dismisses him, and he cheerfully agrees to leave.
As he walks away, another man calls out, "Hey, Loomis!"
Loomis stands alone by a rainy window, holding a long object.
He examines a document detailing the Marquis of Delaraz's skill in subjugating monsters.
Loomis thinks grimly of the Marquis of Delarama. With his eyes hidden, he reveals he's thought of the Marquis every single day. As lightning flashes, he holds a newspaper, his eyes glowing as he thinks the Marquis took everything from him.
At a ball, the red-haired Prince Louis explains he was observing from the second floor. He recalls witnessing Baron Graham's son deliberately bumping into Lady Martins.
Seda looks shocked and unsettled by the sudden collision.
Confronted by the prince and Sarah, the Baron's son frantically denies the accusation. The prince questions his audacity to doubt a crown prince's word, terrifying the man.
Nearby nobles gossip about the man's embarrassing lack of manners and upstart origins. The man nervously begins to offer a sincere apology.
Prince Louis mockingly notes how quickly he folded, and the man breaks into a cold sweat. Looking stunned, the prince begins to speak as Sarah watches in surprise. Defeated, the Baron's son collapses to his knees on the floor. The prince smirks with satisfaction,
commenting that this is more like a proper noble.
He coldly reminds the kneeling man to never forget his standing.
Sarah stares at the prince, her mind filled with his name.
From the crowd, Ezeon watches the scene with a look of annoyance.
She thinks to herself that the man was even more useless than she thought.
Ezeon's expression hardens with displeasure.
She watches the prince lead Sarah away from the crowd.
Sarah looks uncomfortable as the prince walks beside her with a smile.
Facing him, Sarah formally thanks the prince for his help.
She tries to excuse herself, but the prince's expression darkens. He quickly grabs her arm, telling her to wait.
Holding her captive, he assures her he's not going to eat her.
Sarah explains she isn't running away, but she feels troubled whenever he speaks to her.
He chides her for her cold attitude, but she suggests he finds someone else to talk to.
The prince gives a self-satisfied smile. He tells her to stay, insisting there's someone he wants to introduce her to.
He begins to pull her along with him.
Shocked, Sarah calls out to him, demanding to know what he is planning.
Prince O'Lewis introduces the approaching Duchess Haynes.
An elegant, silver-haired woman smiles warmly.
Sarah recognizes the name Duchess Haynes with shock. She recalls that the Duchess is a powerful trendsetter with a keen eye for fashion.
Sarah remembers how the Duchess's dress designs became wildly popular in her past life.
Duchess Haynes formally greets Crown Prince O'Lewis with a bow.
The Duchess glances over, asking the prince if Sarah is the young lady she suspects.
Sarah politely introduces herself as Sarah Martins.
The Duchess smiles, acknowledging she's heard quite a bit about the Martins family's daughter.
Confused, Sarah wonders what rumors the Duchess could have possibly heard about her.
The Duchess leans in, excitedly asking if Sarah used colors unavailable on the market.
A radiant smile spreads across the Duchess's face, utterly delighted.
Prince O'Lewis praises the tapestry as vibrant and masterful, crediting Sarah's design sense.
Sarah is taken aback, thinking that such high praise is completely out of character for him.
The Duchess agrees that the prince's praise makes it truly special and asks which merchant supplied it. Sarah's eyes widen with a sudden, sharp realization.
She understands that Prince O'Lewis is cleverly promoting her family's dyes to the Duchess. The prince smirks as Sarah stands between him and the curious Duchess.
Sarah confidently explains she didn't use a merchant, as the dyes are exclusive to her territory. The Duchess's interest is piqued by the news.
Sarah admits that while they have exclusive rights, cheaper alternatives have hindered their distribution.
Holding out a small red pouch, Sarah offers the Duchess a sample to examine.
The Duchess gasps, covering her mouth in astonishment.
She holds the sample, declaring the color is stunning and unlike anything else, as other ladies admire it.
Sarah smiles, explaining the dyes grow more vibrant in the light, perfect for dresses.
She hopes this successful promotion will finally raise her value in her father's eyes.
The Duchess contemplates the red sample, lost in thought.
With a decision made, the Duchess calls out to Lady Martins. She happily offers to supply the exclusive fabric and thread to her personal boutique.
Overjoyed, Sarah realizes the Duchess is offering her a business deal with fair terms. Sarah eagerly accepts, honored to work with her, as Prince O'Lewis watches with satisfaction.
The scene transitions to the grand estate under a full moon. Prince O'Lewis reflects on his perfect matchmaking between the Duchess's needs and the Martins' unused dyes. In the garden, Sarah begrudgingly admits to the prince that his plan worked out.
He thinks to himself that she remains as cold to him as ever.
The prince quietly accepts her curt thanks.
Sarah beams with genuine joy, thinking this deal will benefit the people of her territory.
The prince watches her, surprised she's thinking of her people instead of herself. His mind declares that she is truly the only one suitable to become empress.
Grabbing her hand, he tells her it's time for her to repay him.
He holds her hand firmly, suggesting they begin with a dance.
Sarah looks up at him, flustered and stammering in shock.
His expression hardens as he states he won't take no for an answer.
Prince Oluis kisses her hand, his eyes locking on hers as he calls her Lady Martins.
Sarah stares back, her expression filled with alarm and dismay.
Holding her hand by the fountain, he presses her for an answer. She thinks defiantly that while he won't let her escape, she will absolutely refuse to dance with him. The scene transitions once more to the magnificent estate at night.
A young man with white hair walks alone, wondering where Sarah has gone.
He stops abruptly, his eyes wide with shock at something he's just seen.
She gasps, stunned by a sudden sight in the garden.
A figure strides purposefully toward them. Held by the red-haired man, the blonde woman wonders how to escape this situation.
Thump. A sudden interruption startles them.
A white-haired man announces himself as Theodore Helden, greeting the young rose of the Empire.
The blonde woman stares in surprise, recognizing Lord Theodore. Theodore watches the scene with a serious gaze.
The red-haired man looks at Theodore, addressing him as Duke Helden.
The red-haired man demands to know the meaning of this interruption.
He explains he was asking the lady to dance, but Theodore declares he has every reason to stop him.
The red-haired man looks shocked by Theodore's bold statement.
As the red-haired man watches, the blonde woman appears serene and elegant.
He looks on, completely stunned by the turn of events.
Theodore takes the blonde woman's hand and gently kisses it.
Flustered by the gesture, she calls out Lord Theodore's name.
Theodore smiles, telling her she looks stunning tonight.
She blushes, thinking he resembles a descended moon goddess.
She returns the compliment, telling him he is shining brightly as well.
The red-haired man's expression darkens with anger as he watches them.
Theodore tells her he would have kept her all to himself if he'd known he'd meet someone so beautiful.
She's taken aback, surprised he would act so convincingly.
Her heart races despite their temporary engagement as he kisses her forehead and asks the prince about an engaged lady's first dance partner.
The red-haired prince grits his teeth, admitting he knows the tradition. Theodore pulls Sarah close, declaring she is his fiancé and telling the prince not to force her. The prince is left speechless.
Sarah turns to the prince, formally apologizing and declining his offer to dance.
She also refuses to embroider his handkerchief, leaving the prince utterly shocked and furious.
Theodore takes Sarah's arm, politely excusing them from His Highness.
They walk away together, leaving the prince to watch them go.
The prince clenches his fist, seething with frustration. Later, inside, Saintess thanks Theodore for helping her earlier.
She says she avoided a difficult situation, and he simply agrees.
He explains he couldn't overlook the prince's actions. He leans in close, smiling as he begins to explain why.
He whispers that she is his precious fiancé.
Thump, thump. Her heart pounds as she thinks she can't handle it.
The red-haired prince stands alone by a fountain when someone calls out to him.
A woman with gray-blue hair approaches, happy to have found him.
He furiously shoves her hand away, demanding she not touch him.
He looks surprised by his own aggressive reaction. He inwardly fumes, questioning why he is so irritated.
The woman pleads with him to calm his anger. He curtly apologizes, stating he won't be returning to the hall with her.
She looks on in shock as he turns his back on her.
Damn it! He runs a hand through his hair, unable to forget the interaction between Lady Martins and Theodore, especially Theodore touching her.
He puzzles over his feelings, wondering if it's because she is his. His thoughts trail off as he looks intensely into the distance. He questions what Sarah is to him, admitting they have no special relationship.
And yet, he can't stop seeing her beautiful, smiling face.
Thump! He clutches his chest, confused by this overwhelming feeling.
Elsewhere, Duke Helden clutches his chest, wondering why it aches so terribly.
At the estate, Sarah is stunned to find herself in a familiar moonlit garden with the white-haired man.
She realizes this is the very place she first met Theodore in this lifetime.
Sarah looks on with a distant, thoughtful expression. Theodore turns to her with a warm, knowing smile. Seeing his smile, a faint blush spreads across her face. She stands shyly in the beautiful garden.
Theodore explains he wanted to visit the place where she first saved his life.
A romantic memory surfaces of Sarah smiling at a blushing Theodore.
The memory makes Sarah gasp in embarrassment.
Flustered, she begs him to forget that time, while he smiles sweetly.
He teases her, saying he still remembers it vividly. She calls out his name in protest as he stifles a laugh.
Theodore gazes at her with a fond and gentle expression.
He confesses that he couldn't take his eyes off her, leaving her utterly bewildered. He stands proudly in the moonlight, his gaze fixed on her.
He apologizes for being late, adding that it was his turn to help her.
Sarah is struck by the thought that he has always rushed to her side.
Theodore pauses, a thoughtful look on his face as he begins to speak. She convinces herself that he's just a serious person who feels sorry for her.
Sarah averts her gaze, seemingly resolved. He apologizes for the delay in giving her something he prepared.
She watches in surprise as he presents a beautiful bracelet on a pillow.
Theodore looks away, a hint of nervousness on his face.
Taking his hand, Sarah tells him not to worry about it.
With a bright smile, she asks him to stay by her side for the ball.
Her request leaves Theodore momentarily speechless. She cheekily explains it's so she can keep him in check.
He smiles warmly and agrees to her terms. Theodore vows he'll never leave her side and will protect her from pests. Music drifts from the grand estate as the ball begins.
Theodore notes the Emperor's arrival, and they agree it's time to enter. Inside, magnificent crystal chandeliers illuminate the grand hall.
The ballroom is filled with smiling, faceless nobles enjoying the festivities.
The Emperor and Empress sit upon their thrones, overseeing the celebration.
The lavish hall is abuzz with the empire's nobility.
The Emperor raises his glass in a toast, welcoming his guests to the feast.
The guests cheer and raise their glasses in unison.
As Sarah and Theodore arrive, a guest notes that they've just missed the toast.
A man's eyes widen in sheer terror.
Crash! A wine glass suddenly shatters, and both Sarah and Theodore look on in alarm.
A guest collapses, clutching his throat and screaming for help as others panic. The Emperor rises from his throne in shock, demanding to know what's happening. Sarah realizes with horror that the drinks were poisoned as people begin to collapse around them. Panicked, Theodore yells for a doctor, and a nearby servant rushes to obey. Sarah fears that with so many victims, they won't be able to save everyone in time.
Filled with resolve, she decides she must save everyone, right here and now.
Her own conscience questions her ability to save everyone there.
A memory flashes of her past self, standing under a starry sky. Her past self warns that saving them is impossible, as it would reveal their immense sacred power.
Her conscience warns her that revealing her power is dangerous and will ruin everything.
Sarah understands the risk, but seems determined to proceed.
Her mind questions if she's just repeating her past mistakes or fighting for a new future. A painful memory surfaces of her past betrayals and ultimate execution.
Her past self questions her resolve, reminding her of all the effort she's put into hiding.
Her inner voice scoffs, asking if these nobles truly deserve her sacred power. Sarah screams in rage, recalling how they abandoned her and branded her a witch. The intensity of her own memory startles her. Her past self insists they are not obligated to help the people who scorned them. In the ballroom, poisoned guests writhe on the floor, crying out for help. Sarah confronts her wounded past self, a silent and tense standoff. The doctors are overwhelmed, declaring there are too many patients and not enough medicine.
Her past self holds up the book as Sarah concedes that she has a point.
But a sudden, fierce determination lights up Saira's eyes.
Despite everything, she declares her intention to save them, shocking her past self.
Sarah explains that her divine power was a gift from Lord Krolt meant to help others. She reflects that if she hadn't acted back then, nothing would have changed from her past life.
Her past self listens intently, her expression softening.
Sarah states that she uses her power to help people because that is its purpose, but her past self looks horrified by the idea.
With a kind smile, Sarah tells her past self not to worry.
A golden light radiates as she vows not to live a future she will regret.
Her present and past selves hold hands, their resolve now united.
Back in the chaotic hall, Saira stands with a newfound serene composure.
She clasps her gloved hands together, preparing to unleash her power.
Kneeling by a victim, Theodore looks up in confusion. A beautiful goddess-like figure appears in a vision of light.
Sarah closes her eyes and begins to pray, a divine light enveloping her.
Elsewhere, Ezion fumes, thinking Flori Graham's failure has worsened her position. A toast is raised to the Rose of the Empire.
Ezion holds her wine, thinking she must regain her father's trust. Crash! The scene erupts into chaos as guests scream and collapse from the poison.
Ezion looks shocked as a man proclaims a saint is present, suggesting it's Lady Martins or Baroness Saintess. She calls out to Baroness Saintess, who is clutching her throat in pain among the fallen. A desperate nobleman begs Lady Martins to save them all. Ezione stares in utter disbelief at the unfolding crisis. A bright light shines as she realizes this is her chance to showcase her own power. A voice from the past calls out Sarah's name.
Ezione smirks, unleashing her own energy and vowing to end Sarah's arrogance.
A healed man thanks her profusely, marveling at her incredible power. Iziane falters, her hands trembling as she realizes her power isn't enough for everyone.
She looks around in confusion and distress. Suddenly, an immense wave of divine power washes over the hall, healing the afflicted.
Iziane gasps in shock, watching as Sarah emits a blinding holy light. From across the room, Theodore watches the radiant Sarah in awe.
He recognizes the immense strength, declaring that this must be her true power.
He is certain she is destined to become the next saint. A healed couple thanks Lady Martins, calling her a true saint for saving them.
Sarah smiles humbly, stating she simply used the power she possesses.
She declares that she can no longer hide this power, as it exists to bring happiness. Theodore approaches her, stating that he saw her wielding her divine power. The Emperor praises her magnificent, saint-like actions. Sarah formally presents herself to the Emperor. The Emperor thanks Lady Martins for averting a diplomatic crisis.
She wonders what diplomatic crisis he means.
He explains the informal gathering was for envoys from the Marl Kingdom. The Emperor thanks her for saving everyone, citing her family's history of saints. She humbly accepts his praise as the highest honor.
Ezione clenches her jaw, seething with jealousy.
A commotion breaks out among the stunned nobles.
The Empress arrives, having rushed over after hearing about the poisoning.
She expresses her relief that everyone is safe. Sarah recognizes Her Majesty the Empress. The Emperor explains that Sarah's power resolved the crisis, which pleases the Empress. The Empress's tone shifts as she turns to the reports. She notes the poison came from the wine, implying it wouldn't happen at an event she arranged. She looks for the person who prepared the banquet. She confronts a horrified Lady Remeniel, asking if she was responsible. The Empress accuses Lady Remeniel of targeting the envoys and nobles. A panicked Lady Remeniel insists she would never do such a thing. The Empress escalates her accusation, suggesting the Emperor was the true target. Lady Remeniel vehemently denies the shocking claim. As the Empress scoffs at her excuses and demands a confession, the Emperor roars for her to stop.
The emperor defends Lady Remeniel, explaining it was her first time arranging a banquet.
He vouches for her kind character, stating she couldn't have been the poisoner.
He commands the empress to stop doubting and see things clearly.
The empress sullenly agrees to his demand.
Her eyes burn with suppressed rage.
Lady Remeniel flinches under the empress's hateful glare.
The empress vows to conduct her own investigation before departing.
The emperor dismisses the incident and invites everyone to continue the banquet.
He suddenly decides that Lady Martins must be rewarded for her deeds.
Sarah is stunned but expresses her deep gratitude for the honor.
Instantly, several young noblemen crowd around her, begging for the first dance.
Theodore intervenes, firmly stating that Sarah will be dancing with him.
He smiles with charming confidence.
The other suitors stare in utter shock.
Nearby ladies gossip excitedly, assuming the two are engaged and a perfect match.
Theodore takes her hand, and she agrees to go with him.
They share a graceful dance on the ballroom floor.
Sarah compliments him on being an excellent dancer.
He smiles, replying that it's only because he's with her.
She laughs, flustered by his charming words.
Theodore thinks to himself that he's never found anyone so captivating.
He feels a pang of sadness, knowing their temporary engagement means she'll eventually leave him.
His expression fills with resolve.
After the dance, Sarah thanks him politely.
He gazes at her with adoration, resolving to win her heart as he whispers her name.
He begins to ask her about the upcoming holiday.
The romantic moment is framed by an elegant flourish of white roses.
Sometime after the ball, a servant announces that Duke Heldon's carriage has arrived for Lady Sarah.
Sarah graciously thanks a man standing behind her. Her expression turns to one of mild surprise. She sees Lord Theodore at the end of the hall and calls his name.
He turns to greet her with a charming smile. Theodore politely asks her to wait a moment.
A young man named Loomis appears, whom Theodore recognizes, while Sarah wonders why he's here.
Loomis introduces himself and formally thanks the Lord for his past assistance.
His eyes narrow with a sudden and serious intensity.
Loomis fiercely warns Lord Heldon not to make Sarah cry, leaving her stunned by his rudeness.
He insists on the importance of making things clear between them.
He threatens to show no mercy if Theodore's affections lie with anyone else.
Theodore simply observes how deeply Loomis cares for Sarah.
He declares that his heart will never be swayed by anyone other than her. Sarah is left blushing and flustered by his direct confession.
He turns, asking if she's still not satisfied with his words.
He then reveals a magnificent flower-adorned carriage as a grand gesture.
He proudly explains that he picked and arranged the flowers himself to make her happy.
Deeply touched, Sarah realizes the sincerity behind his elaborate effort.
Theodore gently invites her to go, calling her by name.
She accepts his outstretched hand, agreeing to go with him. They arrive at an elegant and sunlit building.
Sarah recognizes the trendy cafe that Isyan had been begging to visit.
She looks around, puzzled by why the popular cafe is completely empty.
A waitress greets them, ready to escort them to the second floor.
He reveals that he rented the entire establishment for them, shocking Sarah. She marvels at his extravagance as she follows him to a table.
They settle in for a private date by a large sunny window.
Sarah peruses the menu, finding it difficult to choose between the delicious desserts.
Theodore thoughtfully recommends the fruit tart and offers to order the lemon pie for her as well.
She thanks him with a bright, appreciative smile.
The narrative explains that coffee is a new, unpopular drink from another continent.
Intrigued by the novelty, Sarah decides to order the blended coffee.
Theodore expresses concern, suggesting the bitter drink is ill-suited for a lady's taste.
She politely insists on her choice, thanking him for his suggestion.
She explains that since they don't have it at home, this is a rare chance to try it.
She recalls her past self, who was always too afraid to try new things. Now she's determined to change, seeing this small choice as a significant challenge.
With renewed confidence, she proceeds to place their order.
She raises the cup and cautiously takes her first sip.
The intense bitterness hits her immediately, and she visibly recoils.
Seeing her reaction, Theodore offers to have something else brought for her. She insists it's all right, noting that beneath the bitterness lies a deep flavor.
She smiles, believing she could grow to understand and enjoy its appeal. He is visibly charmed by her courage to face new experiences head-on. She then playfully asks if she can still have some milk. Theodore smiles warmly, thinking that the more he gets to know her,
The more prominent she becomes in his life as he watches her enjoy her dessert.
His expression turns thoughtful, a serious idea crossing his mind.
He wonders if they can make their relationship real, just as she notices his stare.
Snapped from his thoughts, she asks if he will eat, and he happily agrees.
Theodore sweetly offers her a bite of his cake.
Sarah looks completely flustered by the intimate gesture.
He smiles warmly, insisting the cake is for her.
Blushing, she leans forward to accept the offered dessert.
Pak, she eats the cake, her face flushing with delight.
She thinks to herself that it tastes exceptionally sweet.
as he sips his coffee, she wonders if he's the reason. The scene transitions, focusing on an embroidered blue cloth.
Elsewhere, Isiane clutches a dagger, seething with dark energy.
She furiously wonders why her own power won't work, frustrated that Sarah's divine power is so strong.
Isiane glares, recalling the sight of a shocked Theodore with Sarah.
Her hatred burns as she remembers seeing Sarah with the man.
She fumes, remembering when Sarah was meek and lower than her. Crash! Her rage erupts as she violently smashes a teacup.
As she stands over the mess, a voice calls her name in alarm.
Her mother rushes to her side, worried about her getting hurt.
Her mother bitterly blames Sayana for causing Isiane such pain.
The woman apologizes, regretting not having trained Syra properly.
Isiane fiercely rejects the apology, declaring it's Sarah's fault.
Isiane's father watches thoughtfully, believing she's getting carried away by his affection.
Isiane panics, realizing Sarah's power threatens her chances of becoming a saint and marrying her desired suitor.
Her mother comforts her, saying sacred power isn't everything.
The woman presents a letter, assuring Isiane the goddess is on their side.
Isiane examines the letter, a sinister smile spreading across her face.
She muses that, just as her mother said, a nail that sticks out will be hammered down. A dark thought warns Sarah she won't be able to keep her position.
Back at the cafe, Theodore announces it is time for them to leave.
Sarah thanks him with a bright, genuine smile.
He suggests they come again, and she happily agrees.
He gracefully leads her down a grand, sunlit staircase.
Crack! A sudden sound makes her gasp in shock.
The heel of her shoe snaps clean off.
Ah, she cries out as she loses her balance and begins to fall.
Theodore reacts instantly, catching her securely in his arms. She looks up, surprised and flustered by their sudden closeness. He sweeps her off her feet, refusing to put her down and insisting on carrying her to prevent injury. Stunned into silence, Sarah can only blush in his arms. He gently sets her down inside their elegant white carriage. She sits awkwardly, still processing the moment. She frets over her embarrassment, while he kneels to inspect her broken shoe, reassuring her it's okay.
Flustered, she manages a quiet thank you.
He thinks to himself how much he enjoys seeing her flustered side and wants to see more of her expressions. He tells Sarah they still have time before they need to return. He proposes a visit to the newly opened public zoo, surprising her. The zoo, attached to the palace, is normally closed but was opened for the ball.
Her eyes sparkle with excitement as she exclaims she'd love to go.
Theodore beams, sealing their plan with a happy smile.
Arriving at the zoo, Sarah is taken aback by the large crowd. She instinctively holds his arm a little tighter as they walk.
Her heart pounds, and she's grateful for the noise, hoping he can't hear it.
Theodore gently tells Sarah to look ahead, and she nervously agrees.
Her eyes sparkle with pure, unadulterated wonder.
Whoa, she gasps in awe at the sight of a magnificent elephant.
Utterly captivated, she whispers that it's amazing.
She marvels that seeing one in real life is so different from the books.
He remarks that there's a lot they don't know about the world.
She smiles, admitting his words make her feel like a tiny thing.
His expression turns serious as he listens to her. He turns to her, insisting she's not small but a major existence to him.
Thump. She is left completely stunned and flustered by his declaration.
She forcefully reminds herself that their relationship is only temporary.
Composing herself, she offers him a quiet thank you.
She smiles, telling him it's good to have him by her side, while reminding herself to stay grounded.
She knows if she falls for him, it will only cause him trouble.
They walk together down a grand, sun-drenched corridor.
Theodore explains that he really wanted to bring her to this place.
She looks around curiously and asks what is here.
Her expression fills with quiet awe as she beholds the view. Before them lies a stunning garden of golden roses glowing in the sunset.
He explains it's a sight you can only see at this time of day.
He wanted to show the beautiful flowers to her at least once.
He reflects on their enjoyable day and suggests they go out more. She happily agrees, and he promises to always make time for her.
She adds that they must also be careful not to arouse suspicion.
His expression darkens as he quietly pleads with her. He pulls her close, asking her not to provoke him too much. Stunned, she looks up as he gently cups her face. Amidst a shower of golden petals, Theodore passionately kisses her.